They spent a lot of money showing off, you know, jumping out of helicopters, and, you know, probably $100,000 was spent. I don't know how much, but I mean the military was providing the funds for this little game on the beach at Fort Story.
Yeah.
And then there was, each one of the teams has T-shirts, which all sexual.
Yeah.
You know, all about, I mean, think about every weapon.
The driving motivation
is sexual.
of all this stuff is
go for it.
Yeah.
So I went to the party. I took my life in my hands. I called a couple of friends and said, if I don't come back, I'm at the SEAL party, and I'm going to pretend that I'm a SEAL wife. And I'm gonna go to this drunken party. And of course I have an Eagle on my car. They tried to get me to get rid of it.
So you can get access.
So I went in there, and do you know that 90% of the people there were men? They didn't have wives, this party.
And the women that were there were probably...
Yeah, a few wives, but feeling very uncomfortable. So I sort of got in with some of the older SEALs.
Did your husband ever mention the name of Lieutenant Colonel Bo Griggs?
No, but I know who he is.
Mm-hmm.
But he has a lot of Army friends, not that he doesn't know Bo Griggs. I'm sure that Bo Griggs is well known to some of these guys.
Mm-hmm.
I believe he's Army.
Could be.
I'm sure he's not a Marine. I know he's not a Marine.
Huh.
I don't believe he's a Marine.
Okay.
But he's a guerrilla. He's a commando.
Yeah, but his name didn't come up as anything in intelligence.
No, my husband was way above Bo Griggs' level. My husband mentioned people like McFarlane and Crow. Crow was his tennis buddy, I think, you know. Haig.
Alexander
Kissinger.
Haig.
The Victor Krulak. See, Gray is the control guy. Gray and Joy.
Mm-hmm.
Joy's big guy but Joy lost his job at Morale, Welfare, and Recreation, I believe, because I told somebody, maybe that I didn't think wasn't because of me that he lost his job, but they made him move on somewhere else.
Uh-huh.
Because he was at Morale, Welfare, Recreation, which is kind of a money laundering thing. They run all the officers' clubs, all the recreation. It's not a private, I mean, it's all run by the military, even though it's supposedly not military.
Mm-hmm.
And they give the good old boys these jobs. I mean, he was probably earning $200,000. Their retirement for a colonel, my husband, just the retirement salary was $50,000, $60,000. Then they give them these other jobs, so their income is $200,000, $300,000. Mm-hmm. Now, that is not right.
But it would certainly purchase loyalty.
Oh, definitely. They all get swimming pools behind their house.
Who's ever going to bite the hand that feeds that good?
No, nobody. Dirty business, you know, but all of the captains and all of the admirals know this and wink. And it's sick. It's sick. It's just really, really, really bad. And this is taxpayer money. Hard working people who are just wondering where the money is going to come from to pay their taxes. Mothers of children who are having to work 2 jobs to feed their 3 children. And they're spending $10 million on phallic-shaped weapons. I went to the Army show just last week. I was up there. They had a hearing on Okinawan rapes a day. You know, they call it a murder rape a day or whatever, you know. Crime a day by Marines in Okinawa. And I went up there. John Conyers had a hearing. And they also had the Army show, which I had gone to a couple of years before. And in the basement of this big hotel, they have these 200 or more vendors of weapons. Israel is has a joint venture. IAI has a joint venture with, is it TRW, that does all the credit reports on Americans.
Whoa.
Now, they have the computers together. The Israelis stole the whole Inslaw system and sold it back to the Justice Department. And there were murders over that. Mike Fuller knows all. Mike Fuller was a former assassin who's talking, and they are after him. Believe me, I met him through Sarah. He and...
what about this Victor Marchenko? You're pictured with him. What's that all about?
Well, he is a typical example of the mercenary who is brought over from Czechoslovakia, Poland, Romania, the Eastern Bloc countries, who were actually KGB, double agents.
Oh, Marchenko is... Okay.
The family, his family were, his family came over. They weren't even citizens. In other words, they bring over the young man.
Right.
They work for 5 years and then they become citizens. Now, I'm not saying, I mean, I've read his books. I wanted to meet the guy. He knows George. He knows who George is. I read 2 of his books just to see, if it's what George said, to kind of balance, and what these other guys. If you read Marchenko's book, you'll see what my husband, the arrogance. Well, sure, we're going to go into this embassy. We're going to put a whore with this person, and we're going to spy on them and what they're doing, and, we're going to just steal that statue just for the hell of it. I mean, now when you multiply every one of the teams, all the graduates, and think in terms of 100 men applying, and maybe 90 go through most of the training, but they don't quite make it. And then they've got, 400, 600 men who make it, how many don't make it, and then you multiply that over time, and then the ones who are, I mean, this banquet, this gathering of SEALs that I went to, there were probably 1,000 guys there. Now they have to do a cold kill.
Cold kill?
Kill somebody, murder somebody, just to prove they can do it, like ducks.
Wait a minute, the SEALs?
Yeah, SEALs.
So like all 1,000 of these guys have killed somebody?
They've done a cold kill, yeah.
Now a cold kill would be a killing under orders?
It's a graduation exercise kind of thing. It's
I mean, who would they kill?
Oh, it's just somebody, just anybody. Just
go
into a hotel and whack off somebody. I was told that for graduation exercises, the greatest thing they could do was to break into a general or an admiral's wife's house and steal some things, personal items. And to
prove that you were good enough to get in and out.
Oh, yeah. And all of my underwear disappeared, my lingerie, my teddies. And the funny thing is that I don't know whether it was Michael O'Boyle doing it because he was, from 1991 to 1993, Michael O'Boyle was 3 miles away from my husband. He was at his graduation exercise. He was very close to my husband. And yet he was just down the road, and I started questioning my husband about, what is this about you and Michael? What's going on? Well, Michael was there, and my husband never told me he was there, and he saw him all the time. And I'm looking back at when my teddies disappeared, but all this time, now Michael he and his first wife had divorced, that's okay, but he had an affair with a woman and a child, a secretary. So he was having an affair with a woman. I mean, Michael is both ways, you know what I mean? But in order to get into the system, he sort of did it with my husband. He was my husband's friend, younger friend. And that started when he was in the 7th Fleet under Krulak and Buell in intelligence. on the ship. So, but Michael, there he was at Little Creek, my husband's best friend. He never invited him over, but he saw him. So I don't know. You can guess what that means. But the teams, the biological electronic warfare school that, after my husband left FMF Lant, he went to the school, you know, the Special Operations School, which ran the teams, foreigners, and everywhere.
Okay, now the term MAC-SOG, what does that mean? What is that?
It was a kind of a code word for going out and sending platoons to kill people in Vietnam. SOG is Special Operations Group. Special Operations, S-O-S-S, O-S-S, Secret Service, S-S, Nazi Spetsnaz, the German stormtroopers. They all, if you know anything about the German High Command, it's the Brotherhood. It's called, they are connected with the Opus Dei, which is an Italian kind of a business group that works within the Vatican. And I'm told that, and I like the Pope, I think he's a wonderful guy, but I'm told that he was involved with that during World War II.
I've heard that too.
And that the guy who was the Pope before was murdered so that he could get in.
Now I'm still curious about the SEALs in this murder thing.
Are we still on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now a SEAL, in order to complete his indoctrination, becoming a, quote, full-fledged SEAL, part of that includes the fact he has to have killed somebody.
Yeah.
All right, and it could
SEAL
be
Team 6, right, the red team.
Red team.
The Ghetto was the captain of that team, and his wife and I had wonderful conversation.
And would she confirm this as well? I mean, did she confirm this
I
with
guess
you?
she would. She's scared. She's frightened. Most of these women are scared to death because they're warned. They know what happened to Sue Griggs.
Okay, so
They
but they
know.
support you. I mean,
Yeah.
philosophically, in their
Yeah.
hearts at least,
Oh,
if
yeah.
not with their lips.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
they
yeah.
s-
We talk about it. Some of them have to go out of their house. Some of them won't even talk in the office in which they work. They've had men come by their houses. They've had their papers stolen.
I mean, association with
They're-
you could be the kiss of death.
Yeah. Oh, sure. And they know that. But we talk anyway. And you're talking about some really brave women here. And when I talked to, there were a couple of colonels' wives, and before I went public, you know, they were talking to me, except for Carolyn Millis she turned just like that. She was the one whose house I was in when I told about the go-go dancers in the officers club and me taking the picture and thinking about writing the letter to the wives. And she said, "Oh, you can't do that. You'll ruin George's career." In other words, Carolyn has really bought into the system, and she's very pretty and she's very influential with the wives group, but she'll turn on you in a second. And it really hurt me because I was, you know, I kind of depended on her and Charlotte Moore. But when I went public, when I started telling people what I knew little bit by little bit just to get my courage, and then when I finally went to visit Sarah McClendon, it was like, you see, I told you. I mean, Sarah McClendon called my house and they told her it was an army base. I mean, it was a military base, and that the Griggses didn't live there anymore. Ha, ha, ha. See this paper? You know, then I was totally shut off. But until that point, I went in to see Peggy Sheehan. You know, we had tea and food, and he was the head of NATO SACLAN. And his wife, Peggy, said, just, Kay, This is so